Hey guys, ECRG here, back with another episode. Today I've got a very, very special guest with us. I've got my buddy Eric. He's been on the platform before. Thank you so much for being with us today, Eric. How you doing?
Hey, ECRG, it is a pleasure to be here again. I'm doing well. Um, just continuously navigating through this COVID world we live in. It's getting better, I think, but you never know. Just don't watch the news. That's all I'm
Exactly,
saying.
exactly. Oh yeah, I try and not watch the news a lot anyway, but they definitely don't help with certain things.
No.
So thank you so much again for coming on the program. I think last time you were here was about probably it was definitely over 2 years ago. I think.
Yeah,
Because I don't even think you were a CRA yet at the time, or maybe you had just gotten to be a CRA.
I
I
think I
think.
was like in the training program. You were
Yeah,
curious about how I transitioned from project specialist to CRA.
exactly.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to get into all that. So I guess for those who have not watched that first episode, and I'm going to link it in the description so you can go and watch that because there was a lot of gems you dropped in that one too. But for those that didn't watch that or don't know a little bit about your background, can you say a little bit about your background, how you got into the industry, and what you do now? Just kind of brief overview, and we'll kind of dive in after that.
Yeah, so initially I had no idea about this industry. It's not really much of a job fair career. It's not
Like
advertised
most
well.
people, like most people.
Right, right. So I initially had plans of going to pharmacy school, and I had interviewed for a couple schools. And while I was shadowing, I kind of had a change of heart based on some conversations I had, and also just experiences of working as a pharmacy technician and whatnot, intern, and all that. And I had a family friend who worked in proposals for my previous company, and she was in a completely different sector of the industry, but she was like, "You should definitely give it a look. It's really interesting, and there's tons of room for growth." So I looked into it. I got on Google and started looking up like CROs and clinical research contract research organizations, and just was like, this is really interesting. There's so many opportunities, so many positions, like so many titles that I have no idea what they mean. So it was really intriguing. And so I called my family friend back and said, "Yeah, I'm interested." So she, put in a good word. I ended up having a couple interviews and got the job. However, it was in project management. It was a project specialist job, which you also are familiar with, ECRG.
I'm very familiar with this.
Yeah.
That's how we
So
met.
meeting minutes, nightmare fuel. Yep. So yeah, that's how we met, and it was a cool background working in that avenue of clinical research. It taught us a lot about how everything in the background works, and how everything comes together. A lot of the stuff you don't see behind the scenes, and I kind of got sick of that role, and I decided to apply for the Clinical Training Institute, which allowed me to become a CRA one, and got in through my previous company, and haven't looked back since. It's been an awesome experience.
Okay, yeah. So you talked about jumping in a project specialist, um, or different companies call it different things, but project specialist, project coordinator, project management assistant, all the same type of role. And then you moved on to being a CRA. And then, how long have you been a CRA so far?
I think just shy of 3 years.
3 years. That's about right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I guess looking back, would you have done anything different, or do you think you did it right as far as starting in this industry?
That's a good question. That's a good question. It's always, hindsight is always 2020.
Right.
So
Do you think you could have done anything better? Is
let me try to
basically my question.
separate myself from what I am now and what I remember I was as a young Padawan. Um, I would probably, no, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I really like the path I took. I think, you know, I couldn't have just jumped into clinical right away because I didn't have that background. Like, yeah, I have a biochemistry degree, but I hadn't been out there doing this. This is a totally different like career than you think. Like,
Right.
even someone who has an MD or like a PA, like an advanced practitioner, like if they go out and do this stuff, there's gonna be a learning curve because it's so unique and so different. So I really think like just having that project management background has shown me how to troubleshoot issues out in the field.
Yep.
It's really taught me to think in a multifaceted, perspective, and like if I know there's an issue, I can kind of dial back to like when I was a project specialist and think of how would I have solved this from the office or from working at home. And so, there's been issues with like, the drug dispensing systems, IXRS, various system accesses, just in a very small example here, where I could think back to the issues and pain points I used to have, and then I could apply my, real time knowledge to help get something resolved that maybe that person in that position in project management wasn't doing. So I can kind of walk them through, hold their hand, if you will, because there's a lot of that. People get put in these positions with like such grand job responsibilities, that they kind of just say, okay, here you go, and you kind of learn as you go. So a lot of people don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So you do have to kind of like hold their hand and walk them through everything.
You're right, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Definitely in the project management space, you kind of have to know a little bit of all the systems, how to access them, how to use them, how to troubleshoot them. People are always asking you for different accesses and things. So yeah, I think it definitely helped a lot starting on the project management side of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would agree. I don't. I'm so glad I started on that side because a lot of people started in that clinical trial assistant role, and I think that kind of like pigeonholed you to just being in clinical. Whereas when you're on project management, you had access to so many more fields, and I think you came across like more different groups better, more so.
Yeah, I mean, you saw budgets. You might have been reconciling payments. You may have been dealing with like a third party vendor, like
Yep.
Greenfire or something.
Yep.
You ran various like metric reports. You managed the TMF. You were kind of like a jack of all trades, and it
Yeah.
was really interesting. And I agree with you. Like when you see someone who's a CTA, they're essentially like the assistant to the central monitoring associate almost,
Yeah.
because they're office based or home based, and then they are really just only gauged towards clinical side. So you don't see all that back end stuff that you do as a project specialist or whatever's synonymous to that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I agree. But of course, people trying to get into this industry, they can't necessarily, directly choose what position they can get. You just kind of got to take what you can get. And
Yeah.
I felt very fortunate to be able to, get an offer in that role. I'm sure you do too.
Yes.
Um,
Imagine
okay.
being a trusted specialist process. I mean, wait,
Yeah.
a trusted process specialist.
Trusted. Yeah.
It's like the most random thing. Like, how do you really build a case that
to
you
go,
know everything when you're only focused on this tiny little thing, you know?
very, very tiny. Very
Yeah.
tiny. It was
Yeah.
a cool, it would be a cool job straight up. But you're right.